Hello and welcome back to On the Wire for a fantastic jump season preview. We are going to be bringing you some of the best guests throughout the next half an hour to 40 minutes as we look forward to some of the big races throughout the calendar year and some horses that you'll need for your notebook. Our sponsors, Boylesports, have some brilliant offers for the Cheltenham Showcase meeting this weekend, including best odds guaranteed on all singles and multiples for the entirety of the Showcase meeting. Delighted to be joined by Dan Overall, Gavin Lynch and Mark Boylan for this season preview for the National Hunt year. Feels like the band is all back together. And Mark, I suppose we're getting more rain now over the last week or two. Does genuinely feel like kind of the jumps racing and kind of the proper good jumps horses are going to begin to come out very soon.
Yeah, you can definitely feel it in the air. You could feel the rain on your back this morning. I was at Navan Racecourse seeing a few horses galloping, and it very much felt like winter was back at Navan. We're only around the corner from all those big winter festivals coming up. I love that November window where if you're back-to-back kind of weekends at Punchestown, you've got your Fairy House, Navan, and obviously Cheltenham sprinkled in there too, and Down Royal is only just around the corner. So, no, it really is all happening. It's amazing how probably the conversation never really dies down when it comes to National Hunt racing. I'd say if you're a flat diehard, it's very hard to see column inches keep being dedicated to other horses on National Hunt scene. But listen, this is what gets us excited, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. And Dan, with Cheltenham, the Showcase meeting being on kind of Friday, Saturday this week, it does give you that kind of feeling that we're beginning to turn the screw.
Absolutely. So the rain has been much appreciated, and I'll be there for the first couple of days, seeing yourself, I'm sure, as well. And you look at the field sizes, it's been a very stuttered start. I was at Chepstow when we had a 7-runner novice handicap chase that immediately got cut down to 2 because of the good ground. But we start with a 20-runner handicap, and the field sizes are consistently throughout the weekend very good. So it feels like now we can just properly crack on with the season.
And Gavin, there's been a little bit of talk in recent weeks about the Cheltenham Festival, about a couple of changes that have been made. Most notably, the Mayor's Hurdle has been kind of moved to the Thursday. The plate is now on the Tuesday as well. So 3 big handicap chases on the Tuesday. And then there's now murmurs about potentially moving it from Wednesday to Saturday. Seems like the new CEO, Guy Lavender, wants that to be the case. What would you think of that sort of move? Obviously, people don't particularly like change, so it hasn't gone down very well on social media.
Whether it's Tuesday to Friday or Wednesday to Saturday, we're all off work anyway, Andrew, so it doesn't really make any difference. So whether it's which day of the week, I don't mind. But the fact that they've changed, added in, there's 4 handicaps on the Tuesday. The Mayor's Hurdle, as he said, is switched to Thursday to the new course. I suppose we were chatting yesterday, Andrew, that us punters got spoiled for a long time, because I think for 9 years out of 10, us punters were in front after Tuesday. So that might change this year. So we'll have to study handicaps a little bit more.
Yeah, Mark, the idea of having 3 handicap chases and the Fred Winter for a good measure, not going to be a day for the faint-hearted anymore, the Tuesday.
No, the ultimate can be tricky at the best of times. I know in recent years we've had more winning favourites in the plate, but you look at the average SP of the winner of that race down the years as well. It's one that you do enter with caution and with your eyes very much open. Look, I get that you want to be proactive with your changes, and you see crowds being in a mixed space and you want to go and address it, but I'm not really sure that these changes are getting at the heart of what needs to be done here. Like, I mean, you're basically keep shuffling things around. It feels like every year there's a different area to the schedule in one way or another. I think the Thursday is going to get a boost for sure by having a Mayor's Hurdle on it, but I just think the Tuesday was that gem of a day in National Hunt racing, and now you're into majority of races on the day are handicaps. The Boodles as a race is, traditionally double figure price SP winner. I just think punter friendly. It doesn't go that way. We can't have it all every way where people are looking for competitive racing all the time, and then you have maybe odds on favourites in grade ones. I get that. But I think it just tells you that the real issue here is there's too many races, too many days. We're never going to get down to 3 days. But if they want to move things around and keep moving them, that's fair enough. But that's the heart of the problem for me. I think there's just too much of it, even though I love it.
Yeah, potentially so. And Dan, we've seen certainly in the UK schedule, there's been a bit of change. they've kind of near on abolished the novice handicap system up until kind of the turn of the year, and we're seeing an awful lot more of these novice chases now. As we've seen already this week, there's been a few intriguing kind of battles in those races, but it does seem that they've gone kind of from one end of the spectrum completely to the other.
Well, it feels like they want to somewhat mimic the Irish system, but what they haven't addressed is the fact that horses can still just run off their hurdles mark in open handicaps regardless. So it feels like they've sort of built the house before they've laid the foundations, if that's a change they're looking to make. I mean, October to December, they've added 22 sort of non-graded beginners chases in what they're calling the Chasing Excellence series. Now, last year they had 16. The average field size was 3.6. I just don't see how adding 22 more of them is really going to help build competitive racing, and how can they really be supported from a betting turnover perspective as well. So you're going to get the odd occasion where they are good affairs, but more often than not, they're going to be pretty drab affairs, you'd have to say.
Yeah, potentially. Hopefully, it will end up kind of building to a crescendo, and those horses will get maybe a little bit of a better introduction into chasing life. In this video, we're going to look at potentially a few of the bigger races come the festival in March, and then more of kind of horses to follow in the second half of the episode. So no better place to start than the Gold Cup itself. Mark, we had some news during the week about Galopin Des Champs. A little bit of a setback, more of a hold-up than anything, meaning that he's now maybe 50-50 to get to the John Dirk. And that has to be seen, considering his age, as a little bit of a concern if you're backing him to go and regain his crown.
It's not an ideal start. No, you couldn't view it as such. But I do remember this time last year, Andrew, there was concern heading into the John Durkin that they really had to force to get him there. I think there was a little bit of a hold-up. Was it something potentially with a foot? Can't remember exactly, but there definitely was a minor hold-up into that, and it didn't take away from the performances we got to see at Leopardstown later in the season. So, and his Gold Cup run wasn't a bad run by any means, but I think pretty early we felt he probably wasn't going to the level that he was in Ireland previously, at least. So look, not ideal, but I wouldn't be using it as the one stick to beat him with. I think Father Time is the thing that's creeping up when you're all the miles, all those hard races. But, the great ones do manage to stand up to it. And I think it's great for the division to have this rivalry once again. I questioned a little bit, Andrew, whether we were going to definitely see him as often this year, because he was so bold and so brave and campaigned them all through last season. Maybe one less battle on the road to Cheltenham, for all that we like to see these horses run. Maybe for a horse that's getting on in years a little bit, I wouldn't view it as outright a negative if we did just have him that little bit fresher, maybe going to Cheltenham. Far be it from me to tell Willie Mullins the freshness with his horses to go there with, but I just don't think it's a bad thing. But like the overall picture, I'm looking at it and thinking 7-2. I know the way you're thinking, given how slowly he was brought along last season to really peak in March. Why would you do things very different this year? Why would you have him peak in other stages of the year? Okay, there are prizes there to be won potentially, but I don't know if there's a lot of juice in that price for me at the moment. It's 7-2. I think he's every chance of going back and replicating what he did, but I think I'd just rather see how the pieces are falling into place over the next month or two before I get involved. So I'll have other, anti-post positions I wouldn't mind to look at, but for this one, I think it's kind of set where it is. And if he gets there, you'd find it hard to think that they'd run Fact to File, and I know the way you're thinking, in the same colours, and Galopin and Fact to File as well in the same stable potentially. So maybe they will get very bold and change things around, but it's just a developing picture. I'd like to just wait and see. And the other thing to mention with staying chasers as well, how often do we get the picture of all the chasers we have now come that end of season as well? There are going to be a few fall off the cliff along the way.
Yeah, definitely. And there'll be a few horses that potentially will surprise us as well that don't necessarily look like Gold Cup contenders. Gavin, I know the way you're thinking. Interesting point Mark makes there, considering you wouldn't think he will be at concert pitch until March. Do you see a situation where he gets beaten once, maybe even twice, and that price might even go out a little bit? Not necessarily that it should do, but that people kind of almost begin to doubt it, but then he'll be back at his best come March.
Yeah, pretty much. I think that if he finishes in the first five in the John Durkin, his price won't change. I think if he finishes in the first five at Christmas, his price won't change. People are expecting him to get beat, I think, in the first few runs. Last year, he had 3 runs before Cheltenham, Punchestown 2 at Leopardstown, a massive eye catcher in the Irish Gold Cup under Keith Donoghue. But I think those 3 runs really need to get his jumping better. I remember when I backed him in the Kimure, after 2 or 3 fences, you're kind of going, we're in trouble here. But Derek O'Connor was magic. So his jumping has never been amazing. But last year, brilliant training performance by Gavin Cromwell to get his jumping better all the year. And then in the Gold Cup, he jumped very well. He won very easy in the end. Don't forget, to stay 3 miles 2 up that hill takes a lot of doing. And he done it with aplomb. Galopin Des Champs was gone really in the race after a couple of fences. I was watching with a couple of friends of mine that aren't into racing, and we were having a bit of fun watching in a pub, and they were saying, "Asher Galopin's going to win." I said, "Well, look, he looks in trouble already." So, but he's a kind of a horse that he would remind you of Hurricane Fly or something, that he knows he's in a race. He's very competitive. He never gave up. He wanted to win. He's a fantastic horse, the best chaser we've seen in 15 years, staying chaser. So, we haven't had a Gold Cup winner 10 years old in 28 years. Is a cool dawn in 98. So I absolutely love the horse. He's one of my favorite horses ever. But I think that another way you're thinking sets a high standard. If you're looking for something to get there, like Lecky Watson is never a horse I backed. I don't particularly love him, but he did win the Brown Advisory. Is he going to go for the Grand National? If he went here, he might have a place chance. But I think the 2 from last year set a very high standard.
Yeah, they do. And Dan, I suppose you're just looking at this race and you're looking at last year's novices. It doesn't look an overly inspiring bunch to go. And, as I say, there will be something that will come out of the woodwork. There always is, whether that be a Colwell Potter, a Hazy Colour, but something needs to go and improve that guts of a stone to get there.
Yeah, you're looking at the betting now and say Hazy Colours is the shortest of those you've just mentioned, and very likeable horse, improved no end last season as a staying chaser. And you could see him potentially being the type who would maybe stay into a place in a Gold Cup. He still has a fair bit to prove to be Grade 1 standard. I imagine his campaign as a whole will be determined by what happens in the Charlie Hall. If he wins there, I imagine Grade 1 campaign awaits. If not, if he runs into something like the Real Wacker, who'll be primed for the day, maybe they look to go down the Grand National route instead. So I think that'll be very much where his campaign is sort of decided. See, we haven't seen the best of Grey Dawning yet, I don't think. I wouldn't exactly rule him out of being a Grade 1 staying chaser just yet. Obviously, he'll go for the Betfair Chase. I guess that if there's one novice from last season who still has a fair bit to prove in terms of a Gold Cup, but who I think would improve for eventually getting this kind of trip, is Jaguar, who obviously won the plate impressively, will probably go for the Paddy Power. They've always thought an awful lot of him. And you sort of reflect on, I know the way you're thinking, his novice campaign, yes, obviously over staying trips, but a sort of slowly progressive chaser whose jumping wasn't the best, who won a festival handicap and stepped into open company the season after and proved to be up to it. I don't think Jaguar would be massively dissimilar. Now, his campaign will be very much determined by what happens in the Paddy Power, but he'd be the favourite for that. Ultra progressive, still very young. I think in the end, he'd get 3 miles, no problem. And maybe if he was to win a Paddy Power impressively, the options for intermediate chases thereafter in Britain aren't exactly plentiful, especially at the top level. So maybe he ends up running in something like the Cotswold Chase in January to really see where he stands. And it wouldn't be a massive surprise if he did turn up to the Gold Cup in Cheltenham and one of the more lively outsiders.
For any UK viewers who are looking to sign up through Boylesports, they can do so, and they can get themselves an avail of £40 worth of bet credits if they bet £10. Bet £10 to get £40 worth of bet credits as a new UK customer for Boylesports. Yeah, you'd think there might be a lurker or two in there, but it does seem like the top 2 kind of set the standard by a long distance. Gavin, looking at the Champion Hurdle picture, it's an awful lot more open, with the likes of the New Line coming into the scene. We obviously have unknowns about Constitution Hill. We've got the kind of flag bearer really in State Man, and Lossiemouth is the mare that we all want to run in the Champion Hurdle, but is she going to actually turn up there?
I don't think so. I'd say she'll go to the Mayor's Hurdle again. I think Willie is very loyal to some of the stable stars over the years. And I think if Stateman has a decent campaign, he wasn't brilliant last year until he went to Cheltenham, and he would have won except for maybe Paul asking him for a massive jump at the last he didn't need. He should be a dual Champion Hurdle winner. Okay, he's turning 9, which is not ideal. But yeah, I think Lossiemouth will go to the Mayor's Hurdle myself. So backing her at 4, 5, 6 to 1 would seem crazy. The New Line is 4 to 1. Jolly. That's all based on promise. He's never run over 2 miles over hurdles. He beats the Yellow Tape 3/4 of length, as we know, over 2.5 last year. He's got all the potential in the world, but you're not going to back him at that price. And Zidane would have a chance too. Is he going to go to the fighting 5th against the New Line, Constitution Hill, very hard to have the greatest supreme winner we've ever seen, Con Hill, this year. But I think the race is very open, but I wouldn't be backing New Line at 4-1. I think 7-1 Statement, even though he's turning 9, is probably decent value. And all eyes will be on the fighting fifth at the end of November.
Yeah, Mark, looking at Stateman and the type of campaign he's going to have, brighter days ahead is no longer going to be there in those 2-mile hurdles. You'd expect William Money will run in the likes of the Morgiana and the races at Leopardstown, but he may have another kind of relatively free go at it. And it'd be hard pressed to think that if he wins another couple of grade ones on the way, like I felt last year he kind of debunked that whole he's not at his best at Cheltenham sort of rhetoric that did do the rounds. He's a 2-time winner there, and he really should be a 3-time winner there.
Yeah, look at it, and I would have been hands up. I would have felt that way going to Cheltenham last season. Now, what was he going to achieve in winning the champion hurdle relative to other years? You know, would the same performance have been required? He was going with all the swagger that was there to the last, in fairness to him. But I think age is one thing. Gavin Lynch, spending time talking to him down the years, would beat into you. Going to Cheltenham, you have to be conscious of. I know they're not over the hill, but Constitution Hill and Stateman, both going to be 9-year-olds in a champion hurdle. 40, the last 40-something, 43, I think, champion hurdle winners are 8 or less. So, you know, that's something in my mind as well. You're into Hurricane Fly, Rooster Booster territory of horses that have done that since the turn of the millennium. Otherwise, it's very, very sparse back to the 80s. And I just do think that the New Lion is the coming force, but at value at the moment, he's beat the Yellow Clay a length or so in the grade 1 last season. Changed his name so much. I'm trying to think, is it Gallagher, is it Turners, what do we call it these days? But he's beaten him a length and a quarter. The Yellow Clay is 50-1 for a champion hurdle. I think on his overall form, for all that he has lots of style, God, he's priced like he's achieved a whole lot more, I think, than he actually has. And I think looking at the novice hurdles form from last season, I'd have a lot more faith maybe in the Supreme Novices hurdle form than I would in the New Lions form at Cheltenham. And I'd just be willing to give William Money a squeak at the prices. You'd be happy to hear those colours, Andrew. But I think 20-1, you know that's the route he's going to go. You've mentioned the dynamic of the landscape in Ireland for 2-mile hurdling, maybe not been overly deep. You're going to have the regulars, the winter fogs and so on probably popping up, but it's going to be small fields the whole way through. Stateman does take time to come to the Boyle. Last season, he was notoriously kind of big and round, heading to Punchestown the first day. It took a good blow. I just wonder, Barry Connell, he seems to be the ambition here is that if he felt he'd win an Arkle with William Money, he'd end up clashing with Marine Nationale in a Champions Chase in a year's time. That's the way I think they're viewing it. So they're happier to keep them separate here and send William Money down a champion hurdle road. I just don't think it's overly deep in terms of rivals to take him on. And just purely value-wise, I think William Money's run, you know, I think it was every bit as good as maybe what the New Lion did in beating the Yellow Clay. I think William Money could beat the Yellow Clay. I think just at the prices, 4-1 and 20s, that's something I'll take on in that sense. And just to mention, you meant Lossiemouth, like Cheltenham, their changes they announced, they put forward that they wanted to take the Mayor's Hurdle out of the shadow of the champion hurdle in doing so by switching it to Thursday. If they really wanted to take it out of the shadow of it, the time was then to say you restrict some mares like Lossiemouth running it. I'm not saying it's something they should have done, but if they really wanted to do it, you know, it's in the shadow of the champion hurdle when the best mare around could be in a champion hurdle half an hour later. You know, moving it 2 days just doesn't achieve that for me.
No, I completely agree with that. Dan, looking at the New Lions price, do you feel it's priced on the basis that kind of quite a lot of UK fans especially are almost willing this horse to be the real deal? Like they want it to happen. And I suppose what he's done, as much as I completely understand the points made of beating the Yellow Clay that length, everything he's done has been with relative style and a bit of something different.
Yeah, it has been. I think markets just generally love potential. I think that's not just the case of racing markets. In the stock market is also exactly the same. It also prices up what could be rather than what is. Obviously, he has to step on what he's done thus far. But from what you've seen, as you've said, he has done it all relatively easily, probably easier than the margins would suggest. I mean, I still take myself back to that final hurdle at Cheltenham where he took off a mile outside it and almost had to pick himself up off the floor. Like, it was an awful stretch to get there, and it was impressive that he was able to pick himself up and rally to win. Yes, now the bare form does need improving on, but the potential is there. They've never really hidden how much they liked him. Obviously, JP bought him as well. It's all there to see, but I mean, 4-1 is awfully skinny when you think about it. And you look at the fighting fifth market as it stands, like he's around 13-8. You've got Amsterdam at 3-1, Constitution Hill at 10-3. It kind of points you towards maybe Amsterdam being the lurker. Now, he still has a lot to prove in terms of his overall form, because beating Carla Conti and Beacon Edge wouldn't exactly also be champion hurdle standard. But the vibes about him have been very strong for a long time. the Fighting Fifth would seemingly be the target, and we're going to learn an awful lot about him. And that Fighting Fifth will probably determine the shape of this market moving forward, because if Amsterdam goes there and beats the new line comfortably, you're going to get an awful shift in terms of these early prices. But as the guys have said, a bit like last year, State Man is just in that market as the solid one. Maybe slightly uninspiring in terms of where you'd go, but 7-1 State Man versus 4-1 new line, I think you'd have to side with State Man.
Yeah, just one final question on the Champion Hurdle, Gavin. I think something that doesn't get talked about sometimes enough is the idea, because people will want to potentially back a horse like Amsterdam, but there's going to be no way, unless State Man is injured, that Paul Townend is not going to ride State Man in the Champion Hurdle. I do think, I understand Willie Mullen's second string, third strings can win races, but you surely, come the big day, want the stable jockey on your horse.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Recently, I don't pay too much attention to stable tours, but one thing I took from Willie's one there a few weeks ago is that Paul has always maintained that Stateman's a better horse than Lossiemouth. So that's interesting in itself. So Paul will ride Stateman in the Champion Hurdle for sure. Even if Amsterdam wins the Fighting Fifth, I'd agree with you that he would probably stay on Stateman. But it's a long time till March. The other thing about Amsterdam you have to remember as well is that he didn't make the Triumph Hurdle through injury, and he didn't make last year's Champion Hurdle through injury. So he's quite delicate. He's easily injured, so just keep that in mind. The fact that Joe Donnelly owns the two of them is handy for him. But yeah, I think Paul will ride Stateman. It'd be very unlikely that he won't. And I don't think it's a strong Champion Hurdle, to be honest with you, because you've got Constitution Hill, who's about 60% of his former glory. I don't think it's a strong race. And if Stateman had stood up in last year's Champion, won by 4 or 5 lengths, which he would have, as he showed at Punchestown, I think he'd be maybe 4-1 at the minute.
Yeah, it certainly looks a very open Champion Hurdle, but the vibes from the lads seemingly is that State Man is the solid option. Our partners, Boylesports, are also bringing you more and more for the Cheltenham Showcase meeting, including getting your money back as a free bet if second to the SP Favs. Sometimes you knock into a good horse, you'll be feeling a little bit sorry for yourself, but Boylesports have you covered and money back as a free bet. So for the second part of the show, we're going to be looking more so at horses to follow, potentially handicappers, horses we haven't necessarily kind of mentioned and mightn't necessarily be those big grade 1 horses. Dan, it was interesting you were talking about Jaguar, the type of horse that could very easily go off a short enough price for a Paddy Power. Are there other horses? I'm sure you've a massive trove of horses over in the UK that you're looking forward to running in handicap chases or handicap hurdles.
I'm a bit of a sycophant for anything rated around 120. That's the kind of range which really gets me going over the summer months looking at. So I'll give you a few that I think look very well handicapped moving forward. The first is a horse called Jupiter de Motte for Lucinda Russell and Michael Scudamore, only rated 123. Only 3 starts last season, made a belated hurdling debut when beating Loreni, who had already been a previous winner, won again subsequently. That was a good effort on debut. Then bumped into Crest of Fortune, who obviously went on to finish 3rd in the Sefton and Aintree, and was last seen finishing 6th in the very good listed race at Perth over 3 miles, which was a deeper event than it normally is, mainly because the Skeltons and Willie Mullins were going hammer and tongue, so they threw a few darts at it. Shaped really well in 6th, held up last, still looked pretty inexperienced, but only rated 123. All the horses around him are rated in the 130s, and he looks just a proper staying chaser, and that yard does particularly well with those types. The other would be Soul Solution for Venetia Williams, rated 119. Proper mudlark. So, as always, when Venetia's yard is flying along, when the mud is flying, he'll be one to really keep on side. Dual bumper winner. Has had his issues, but just seems to thrive on really heavy ground and showed a really good attitude at Sandown when he won, grinding it out from the front, repelling multiple challenges when he won a handicap debut. Half brother to Easy As That, who got to a mark of 142 when trained by Venetia, and also Howling Mad Murdoch as well, rated 144. So deep ground handicap chases, 2.5 to 3 miles will be where he shows his best effect. And Vanderpoel for Ben Pauling, who again will go chasing, only rated 128. Arrived pretty late there. He beat Champagne Jury in his point-to-point by 10 lengths, who's now with Gavin Cromwell, won a bumper and was then second to Honesty Policy on hurdling debut. I just remember his hurdling debut when hadn't been with the yard all that long. He was at Huntingdon. He just cruised through that race so well, and he beat George's Lad, who's now rated 128, And Rubber Ball was back in third, also rated 128. Did that impressively, won under a penalty next time out, and then pulled up at the Premier Novice Hurdle at Kelso, where there were excuses that day. They found he wasn't quite right post-race. You can put a line through that. But his style of racing, his natural pace that he shows, the point-to-point form, all screams to him being quite a progressive chaser this season. And again, I think he's a type that Ben Pauling does very well with. And I'll only mention one more because he's rated 98, and I was there at Fakenham last week. Just one on the top of my head because I he got his opening mark, and that's Kelly Joe for Stuart Edmonds. Absolute headbanger of a horse has been thus far, but at Fakenham last time he showed signs he was finally learning to settle, and he consented to race, still keenly, but out in back. He didn't pull himself to the front. He has far more ability than the mark of 98, and now he's starting to relax a bit in his races. I think he'll have potential in some of those low-grade handicaps during the winter.
Gavin, really, Dan does have a perverse enjoyment of some of the more ordinary horses we will get to see.
I really do.
What I was going to say was, lads, there's a chance that we're four nerds, because when you hear one fella saying the horses rated 120 really get me going, that has to be a worry.
Oh, I've embraced it though. I know I'm a complete loser, and it's fine. I'm joined by 3 others here.
Gavin, anything for us to follow? Hopefully a little bit better than a 98 rated horse at Fakenham, I must confess.
But a winner's a winner. That sounds good. I'll mention 4 hurdlers to you and 2 chasers, perhaps. Dr. Dumanil, who won a bumper over 2 mile 3 in Cork, he'll end up 2.5, 3 mile novice hurdler. He looked decent that day, won by 11 lengths. Looked me tender one last week, a couple of weeks ago in Tipperary in a very fast time. Did win a bumper in the summer, won a maiden hurdle, won a novice hurdle. I think he will be tricky enough to beat, I think, in the Royal Bond. Bud Fox is the horse I like. Gavin Cromwell's won a bumper very easily at Punchestown. The 2nd, the 4th and the 5th have won since, and the 3rd horse ran well recently. There seems to be a lot of talk about this Monge 2. The first time I ever heard of Monge 2 in my life was in Only Fools and Horses. Monge 2, Rodney, Monge 2. But I looked at the replay of it only this morning. It won in Compiègne last May by 15 lengths. The favourite fell in the last, but Monge 2, she still would have won by probably 8 or 10 lengths. And I've seen Gordon Elliott talk very, very highly about her, so keep an eye on her. She'll go to Fairy House on Royal Bond Day as well. There's a graded novice hurdle there for 3-year-olds. And 2 chasers, Jimmy Desoy, who won the Coral Cup off 146, haven't been off a long time. He could be a decent chaser. And Rocky's Diamond, he was 4th in the Stairs hurdle. He's only a 5-year-old, which is amazing. He was very, very good in Galway, jumped superbly. The 2nd horse, Adragul, has won an ordinary contest since. Now, he might not win the Drinmore. He's going to be up against horse like Gold Dancer, who jumps brilliantly. But if he gets 3 miles, soft ground, jumps really well, as I said, he's a great age. So Rocky's Diamond could be one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I can completely see that, especially earlier in the season. Mark, what about yourself?
Well, I had 5 to follow, and Gavin has taken 2 of them. So we're obviously either in great territory or very poor. But Dr. Dumanil, I thought of all the Willie Mullins bumper winners last season, it was a standout for me at Cork. I know Gavin mentioned could go up and trip, but individually, when you're looking at the top speeds, the sectionals like Everton and the metrics in that card, it was pace in what he did there in that day. In 2 strides, Jody Town said he had it done. And I have to say, I love horses out of Santa Sant Mares. If you look down the list of, like this guy, he's Dr. Dino of Santa Sant Mare. Santa Sant Mares have produced El Fabiolo, Duvan, John Bon, Envoy Allen, Appreciated, Saint Roy, Muscada, Salvatore Mundi. He's an outstanding dam sire, so I'd be very interested in that alone. And obviously, Dr. Dino is a good sire too. I think there's a bit of depth to him for all that. Maybe it was hard to equate what he beat exactly at Cork. And the other one, Bud Fox, I have an awful lot of time for what he did at Punchestown too. And something I was looking at as well, Gavin Cromwell's record at Punchestown with bumper winners down the years. He does tend to send, it's his best strike rate for bumpers at any track in Ireland is Punchestown. And his bumper roll of honour in Ireland is, let's be clear about it, Time Form 151, Limerick Lace 147, my mate Mozzie, who's obviously been grade 1 place, grade 3 winner 150, Pat Daru 144, the Passing Wife was very promising bumper horse, 6.5 is another one of his punches and bumper winners, 137 plus. Will the Wise, a Pertemps qualifier winner. It's really, really strong when he tends to send to Punchestown. This horse was really well punted the first day, didn't disappoint, came well recommended from Derek O'Connor, who rode him. I think he could be very, very useful. And I suppose 2 other ones to throw into the mix there as well. I wouldn't forget about the Jukebox Man this season. I think when you're looking at the way the stay and chase has developed last season, I felt his absence was really keenly felt in the Brown Advisory. He was going to be close to favourite for it when he got ruled out. It sounds like they're working back from the King George with him. I think he could be a bit of value there around 16 to 1. And he's still 7. He's not like he has crazy miles in the clock or age has passed him. just maybe wouldn't take a huge amount for him to work himself into being a little outside Gold Cup player. But that King George, if a Factify didn't make it there, I just wouldn't be afraid that when they're counting back from that day with him, I quite like the look of him. Meyertown as well, he looked pretty obvious after the Ultimate last season. The way he was punted, you take big note of what he did there. He's 33s for a national, it wouldn't be my style to have a national bet this far out, but I do think he is that written all over him if he can get to that point of the season. And the last one I mentioned, a little bit left field, but there's a horse that's joined Gordonelli for juvenile hurdling called Barbizon, who looked quite useful in the flat for the John Joseph Murphy team. He got up to a mark of 101. And just if you think of that kind of what they say, sometimes kind of 30 or 35 pounds added on to your flat rate and can sometimes bring you to where you are over hurdles. If that was to be the case, it'd put him bang in the kind of top 10 type juvenile hurdlers, I'd imagine, in Ireland last season. So I think, and obviously he's unexposed type of horse. He was very, very good when he beat a real solid yardstick in Courdor last time at Punchestown. So I think he's one that could be interesting. Maybe he's only recently run on the flat, relatively speaking, so we mightn't see him immediately. But he was just one that I thought when I saw his name pop up with Gordon Elliott on the HRI Ross listings the other day, that caught my eye. I think he could be a smart juvenile hurdler for him.
Yeah, definitely. Barbizon was it? I was actually working in the Racing TV studio when he won at Punchestown the last time. It's interesting to see him go juvenile hurdling. We'll be bringing back the 60-second selections part of the show this year because it went down very well last year. It gives the guys an opportunity to tell us about a couple of bets they might be having this weekend. And obviously with the Cheltenham Showcase meeting, plenty of really good racing over the bank holiday weekend in Ireland as well, with Galway and Wexford. So plenty to get stuck into. I'm going to start off with just two for Cheltenham, one being Unsel Alavi in the Grade 2 Novice Hurdle on the Friday. He's 2-1 now. I think that's still fair enough. He was a little bit bigger during the week for the Twiston Davis team. Was very impressive in a bumper market race and did well to win on hurdling debut market racing as well. Looks like the type of horse that will certainly profit before Christmas time. I'm sure we'll see him plenty of times in that time as well. And then in the Pertemps qualifier, I know it's potentially a difficult thing to go and run and kind of find the winner of a Pertemps qualifier at this time of the year, but I really like Long Draw at 7-1 for Ollie Murphy and Sean Bone, who can do no wrong at the moment. He's the type of horse that enjoys Cheltenham, has won at Cheltenham before, was third at Haydock last time out in May, likes any ground really, quite versatile, and still has mileage in his mark. Gavin, what about yourself this weekend?
Just before I go into some selections, well, not selections, but ideas for the weekend, isn't it a farce that we still have the Pertemps qualifier system?
Yes.
Isn't it? It's shocking. Like, what are you doing? Only you're almost encouraging people to finish second, third, and fourth. And
Yes.
We're all here. We're trying to get value. We're trying to back winners next March. So, like you, I would be watching the Pertemps. And I'll see a horse finishing third or fourth. I go, did you see a man finishing? And we're all watching. We all see it. And he's got a far better chance of winning next March than the fellow who wins the race, or the mare that wins the race. So I just think the system, that they've made a lot of changes to Cheltenham over the years, more recently. But I think they definitely need to look at the Pertemps, because to encourage people to finish third and fourth is not where we should be at.
Yeah, well, I don't see what they were gaining. It was obviously the first six up until a couple of years ago, but it's still,
it's antiquated.
Really yeah.
It'd be the first race to go if they ever decided to, get rid of some races anyway, wouldn't it?
But I don't mind having a 3-mile handicap hurdle, but there's absolutely no need to have the qualifiers. Just have a normal handicap hurdle and make the prize money a bit better. Some of the prize money at Cheltenham is still too low, like your 50, 60,000 pound races, whereas the DRF, for example, every race over 100 grand. So every race at Cheltenham should be 100 grand, and there should be a 3-mile handicap hurdle, but there's no need to have those qualifiers personally.
I'd throw in there that I would have given ride of the season back in 2018 to Davy Russell and Sire de Burley when he got him qualified for the Pertemps in 6th. I think the final circuit Sire de Burley clocked was quicker than Apple's Jade in the Grade 1 the same day. It was an absolute worldly, in fairness, to get him teed up for the big day. So, yeah, long live those rides.
And followed by a brilliant ride by Barry Geraghty to win it as well at the festival.
Exceptional.
Thankfully. I was playing golf the same day and I backed him, so it was a good day. So this weekend, I'll give you 6 to just maybe think about. I'm not saying I'll back them all because I haven't seen the makeup of the races yet. Saturday, Cheltenham, 110, Darcy's Friend, very unlucky, Killarney. Probably would have won except for a dreadful mistake, 2 out. Only had the one spin over fences, but it's in here off 121. I think it's 6-1 to field. I think it's 8 or 9 to 1 shot. That would have a squeak. Galway, 3 Dimension, Kibris. was 89 in the flat, had a run over Hurds of Cork, jumped terribly, finished second. If it jumps better, it should probably win. It would probably be favourite. Waterford Whispers runs in the 338, has had 3 runs over fences, was 4th at the stall. Mark Walsh rides, and if the market speaks in its favour, it should go close. The Zeus Power was very green in the bumper a while back at Galway, ran all over the place. If it's a bit more professional, it should win maybe the 518. And 2 on Sunday, we don't have the final entries yet, but if Oscar's brother runs he'd have a squeak, things didn't just fall his way. Listowel won second. And it depends what Willie runs in the race on Sunday, but he'd have a chance. And I'll sort that was very impressive in Listowel, beat a whole lot of business who won since. Torps was in third, who ran a cracker last weekend in Limerick. And I think I'll sort that should beat Magjack's Hill belonging to Gordon Elliott. So there's a few to keep in mind for the weekend.
Very good, Gavin, and very concise as well. Dan, who do you fancy this weekend?
Yeah, I'll roll through a few. The 2-mile handicap chase at Cheltenham, Jasco de Dam. I think this will be a good opportunity for him. He made his handicap debut in the Grand Annual, which is never easy to do, but shaped really nicely in 5th that day. Ran well on his reappearance last month, and you generally think Henry's would come on for the run this time of year. Wouldn't surprise me if this has been the target for some time, bearing in mind he won it a couple of years ago with Dancing on My Own, who also finished 3rd last year. In the 2-mile handicap hurdle, the conditional jockeys race, I'm looking for Justice for Norman Fletcher, who should have won the race last year, but found out all sorts of traffic. Now back on his last winning mark, had a bit of a spin round of the Welsh Champion hurdle where went far too quick too soon and just looked to blow up. But he's competitively weighted and he won't have any issue with whatever the ground will be. He's around 14-1, I think, currently. On the Saturday, you've got Highland in the 3-mile 1 handicap chase. Less rain, the better for him, but really supremely good jumper who goes really well at Cheltenham. His form beating Transmission and Resplendent Grey at the October and November meetings last year now reads really well and was second to the Jukebox Man in the Corto Star. Only question would be how far forward Nicky Henderson's runners are, because we haven't seen that many, but I think he was around 7-1. He looks to have a very solid profile. And then at Aintree on the Sunday, if Nocte Velatus goes for the Veterans Chase, I think he'll have a really good chance there. Record Fresh is fantastic. Tom Lacey was really out of form for most of last season, but he still ran some really creditable races with form that's stacking up really well. But Tom Lacey's yard going much better now, steps up to this kind of trip, which he's looked to need for a while. Just looks to have a fair bit of potential still in Veterans company off that kind of mark.
Very good. Best of luck to Dan. A nice sprinkling between Cheltenham and Aintree. Mark, who do you fancy?
Likewise with our horse to follow, a little bit of overlapping with Gavin again, but first one I put forward.
Come on, Mark.
I like Mulla Glass, the auction maiden hurdle, which is one he didn't mention, but I do think that's a race where you might get a little bit of value because there's a few players in there with form. I'm not convinced that L'Evangeliste always has been one to finish out over strong, so I think I'll take on him, and I think that he just might be one after winning in Galway last time. Course form important around there. They did rate him quite highly going to his bumper first time out, that Goff's Defender bumper, punches down that throws up plenty of winners, and he was beaten in the stall, but I think he's a good bit better than he's shown since. So I think he could be 1 4-year-old on the up for Andy Slattery. He was just an absolutely incredible summer. I think Kibris will win the 3-year-old hurdle as well as Gavin does, and Darcy's Friend was the other one. I think there's actually 10-1 out there about him at the moment in a place. I think that's a bit of each way value, just 2 quick runs to put him spot on for this. Okay, it's a new mark that you're going to have a new challenge off, but yeah, I thought he looked one. Emmett Mullins, just gradual improver. Could be more to come again. So keep it concise. Mulla Glass, Kibris, and Darcy's Friend.
Best of luck to Mark. Really enjoyed having both Dan, Mark, and Gavin all on the show this afternoon. Hopefully you have enjoyed it. If you have, please make sure to like the video down below. Subscribe to the Racing TV channel so you don't miss any future On the Wires. We'll be back with plenty more of them throughout the season. I think the next one will be before the November meeting at Cheltenham. So we're already looking forward to that. It would be a great national hunt season, and we hope you're going to enjoy it just as much as we are. We'll see you again very soon. Our sponsors, Boylesports, have some fantastic sign-up offers for you. If you decide as an Irish customer to want to sign up to Boylesports, if you bet €10, you can get up to €70 worth of bet credits. Bet 10 to get 70 as a new sign-up offer for Boylesports Irish customers.
Watch live racing now on racingtv.com.